Milan are back. Well, Allegri's new look Milan are back. Milan have just completed their first pre-season game of the upcoming campaign against Arsenal. Yes, they won on penalties, but they lost the 90-minute match. Now, who cares? It's pre-season. But you can learn a lot in pre-season, especially when a new coach comes in. So, who impressed? Some, as always. Who failed to impress? Some, as always. What was Allegri's new system, and what does the future hold for this Milan team? Now, in this video, I want to break it down into three parts that caught my eye. Number one, the system. Number two, Rafael Leao in particular, and his new role in this system. And number three, the biggest alarm bell for me. Well, it wasn't really an alarm bell, but something that told me in order for Allegri to play this style of football, he needs a certain profile to make it work. But we will leave that towards the end. Now, if you're new, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. Always engage in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed the game and you learned a few new things about the new look Milan. Now, let's get into it. Numero uno, number one, the system. Heading into this game, I feel like everybody looked at Allegri and said, what system are you going to deploy? 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 5-3-2, 3-4-3. What are you going to throw at this Milan team? For me, it looked like Allegri's notorious 5-3-2. But the thing that caught my eye, and there's a reason why I want to speak on Rafael Leao in particular and that unique profile. It's like a domino effect. Every single point of mine makes sense, one after the other. I saw the 5-3-2. Of course, it was low, it was compact, it invited pressure. But the one thing about Allegri's team over the years is they've always invited pressure, but they've been so good defensively. And I feel like, especially when you bear in mind the two starting 11s, like Arsenal practically went out full strength. Arsenal were really struggling to break down this team. Of course, when you look at the stats, Arsenal have had 25 shots to Milan's 2. But when you're shooting from 30 yards, when you're shooting from angles where the chances of you scoring are, I don't know, 2%, 5%, you're not really troubling this Milan team. But we saw the 5-3-2. In the first half, it was Christian Pulisic and Rafael Leao leading the line. Low, compact, inviting pressure, but when the opportunity presents itself, Milan would go on the counter-attack. They would try and pounce. But this is where it started to stand out for me, especially in the second half. Now, Allegri's 5-3-2, we saw in possession, it automatically turned into a 3-2-5. Ricci, for me, I know this was his first performance, and I know it was pre-season. This kid is looking like a superstar. This kid, his ability to drop deep, connect defense into attack, his wide range of passing, like there were one or two long passes that I saw, and I was like, when the Serie A campaigns, this kid is going to be trouble. I feel like he had a I believe he played about 65 minutes. He had a very good 65 minutes. It would turn into a 3-2-5. You could see Ricci and somebody like Musa would sit. They would be the anchors, the protectors. The ball progresses from deep, getting the ball into attack. Now, it also became at times a 5-4-1. This now touches on to my second point, which is Rafa Leao. Let's just make sure we're all on the same page. 5-3-2. In possession, it turns into a 3-2-5. But then in the second half, we began to see this tactical switch in game. And this is why, for me, I feel like Rafael Leao might actually have a new position under Allegri. We saw the 5-4-1, but the player that was mainly chopping and changing, because 1 minute, 5-3-2, 60 seconds later, 5-4-1. It was mainly Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Now, you could see in some moments, Ruben Loftus-Cheek was arguably side by side to Rafael Leao, playing as a makeshift number 9 with Allegri going with two strikers, Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Rafael Leao. But then 5 minutes later, Ruben Loftus-Cheek would slot in on the right hand side, making it into a 5-4-1. Let me break it down for you guys. When Milan are looking to press in the second phase, they press in the 5-3-2 shape, because you want somebody to press alongside Rafael Leao, and especially if they do win the ball, you want somebody in close proximity to Rafael Leao where they can give and go. Like we saw this one opportunity where Milan must have found Arsenal, like on the transition, Rafael Leao dropping deep, beautiful chest control, passing it into the space, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, he goes carrying. That's why it's good sometimes to have two players playing close to one another. But as soon as the opposition get into Milan's half, this is when the instruction becomes towards Ruben Loftus-Cheek, okay, you're not a striker anymore. Go slot in on the right hand side. That way, we've got ourselves 5 defenders, then a row of 4 right in front of them, and then Rafael Leao all alone. The reason why I want to speak about Rafael Leao, who in my opinion had a relatively good game in terms of the ball carrying, taking on players, there were a few nice flicks and tricks. The reason why I look at this and say maybe, just maybe, this new role of makeshift number 9, but also playing as a winger out of possession. I think this is the Rafael Leao position. Well, it could either be Rafael Leao's position or Christian Pulisic's position, because I look at Rafael Leao and I tell myself, Rafael Leao, when the opposition get into Milan's half, you drop in on the left-hand side. But if Allegri truly wants to play his 3-5-2, his 5-3-2, maybe, just maybe, Rafael Leao is that player where on the transition, in the opposition half, he can tuck in next to the striker, deploying a two-striker system. It's so similar to what he deployed at Juventus with Chiesa and Dusan Vlahovic, where Chiesa would slot in on the left-hand side, but then on the attack, he goes and he joins Dusan Vlahovic. Is this a new look, or is it just one game? Like, I feel like we will definitely learn so much more from watching Milan's next pre-season game. But I look at it and I tell myself, Rafael Leao ticks all the boxes for this, because he can play in the central areas. We saw it, the ball carrying, the playmaking. But then at the same time, he tucks in on his more natural left-hand side. And I feel like the fact that Milan have signed somebody like Pervis Estupiñán, he can carry the flank on the left-hand side, whilst allowing Rafael Leao to tuck inside. So Rafael Leao practically becomes a makeshift striker, a makeshift winger. He just plays in that half space, depending on the dynamics of the game. Now, point number 3, and I feel like it backs all the business that we've seen in the current transfer window, where Allegri wants his hands on a new striker. Why? If you watched the first half and you saw when Pulisic and Rafael Leao were both leading the line, as much as individually they are two good players, as a duo in attack, it didn't make sense because both of them are very similar to one another. Both of them want to carry the ball. Both of them want to take on players. Both of them want to run into the space. But in the second half, when it was Loftus-Cheek and Rafael Leao, you could see Leao is the outlet, the ball carrier. Loftus-Cheek was more the physical profile, somebody that can occupy midfielders, occupy defenders. I feel like in any split two-way striker system, a two-striker system will always be split in terms of responsibilities. One is the outlet, the one that runs in behind, and the other is the one that drops deep, holds up the ball, creates the space in behind for his striker partner to run into. Because of that, I was sat watching the game and I was like, if Allegri, and I know it's only been one game, but if Allegri truly wants to play this 5-3-2 system with a split striker system, similar to Juventus once again, he had Vlahovic and he had Chiesa. Vlahovic would drop deep, Chiesa would be the one that makes the run in behind. If Rafael Leao is going to be utilised in that position, you need yourself a striker that's got amazing hold up of the ball. A striker that's amazing at dropping deep and leaving space in behind. A striker that can give you the best of both of us. He can drop deep, but at the same time, he can be the outlet in behind. I know it's only been one preseason game, and maybe you never know. The next preseason game, Milan set up in a 4-3-3. But based on what I saw, it's now beginning to make sense, some of the links that Milan are currently linked with. Like, for example, when you look at somebody like Mateta, that's exactly how Mateta is used at Crystal Palace. He's the one that drops deep and he leaves space for people like Eze, or a year ago, somebody like Michael Olise to go and dart into. When you look at the way Boniface is used at Bayer Leverkusen, he drops deep. Then you've got Florian Wirtz and all the other players tucking inside. I look at Vlahovic and I say, it can work, but I don't think it would work as good as a Mateta. I don't think it would work as good as a Boniface, because I feel like they have the characteristics and the strengths to play the game that way. I also look at somebody like Moise Kean. I think Moise Kean would be game-changing for this team. Moise Kean, for me, is one of the strongest strikers in the Serie A when it comes to dropping deep, holding up the ball. I don't know. Like, I'm just basing this off what I saw of the first 90 minutes of pre-season. If this is how Allegri wants to play, and he wants to play in a very similar way to his Juve team, split striker system means you need unique profiles. Now, maybe it is Santi Jimenez that is going to be catered into that position, but I don't know if Santi Jimenez can do the dropping deep, connecting of the play. If anything, Santi Jimenez is probably better off being the outlet, the one that runs in behind. I don't know, but I feel like I'm now beginning to connect the dots. You look at some of the rumours, the players that they're linked with, and the way Allegri has now just tried to utilise Loftus-Cheek in that position. So maybe, just maybe, Boniface would make a lot of sense. Mateta would make a lot of sense. Moise Kean would definitely make a lot of sense. But maybe Vlahovic, there's question marks over how well he can do this role. Now listen, next preseason game, God knows what's thrown at us. Now if you're new, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys on another one.